New article, we're going to look at a really common mistake that beginner writers make. I'll tell you the symptoms of that, see if you make it. If you do, I'll also give you some instructions on how you can fix it, including a simple app that I've created that you can use to train yourself out of this. Okay, before we get started, if you want to get an email with a timestamped overview of every time I release a new video, and the overview is of that video obviously, head over to my deliberate-practice.com website, sign up for my email list. There's other content at the website, so go and check that out too. There's also, in the upcoming weeks and months, will be some email subscriber only content as a thank you for signing up, and the first piece of that email only subscriber content will be the simple app that I've created to help train you to overcome this problem if you suffer from this problem. Okay, so what is this rookie mistake? Well, when you're writing, do you find that you'll write a sentence or a paragraph and then immediately edit and fix it? Or do you rewrite single lines or paragraphs multiple times before moving on? If that's the case, this is called edit as you go, and writing fiction in this way for most writers kills story momentum. Here's why. The brain essentially, and this is kind of like a metaphorical overview, has got two different hemispheres. One's responsible for the creative part, one's the analytical hemisphere. Your creative brain is responsible for ideas, story material, and the analytical brain corrects and refines what's already been written. So that's really important, which is why I put it in capitals. So the analytical brain can't take place until the creative brain has put something down on paper. These are different mental processes, and each subbrain works best when it has your full and undivided attention. So switching from one to the other is not an optimum use of the different parts of your brain. And there's a hidden problem with doing this. The best writing, and sometimes the quickest, happens when you write in flow. At some stage I'll write more about flow or create an article about flow, but writing in flow, I'll just give you a quick story or quick anecdote of writing in flow. I was once writing this was a non-fiction piece, but the same thing happens with fiction. I started writing and suddenly something just went click in my brain, and I ended up writing about a 3,000 word article in about 30 minutes, and the article came out really well, didn't need much editing before I hit publish on it. And what happened was I started writing and I just got into flow, and it was like I was taking dictation, like there was a little angel on my shoulder giving me all the words, and I was just trying to take them down as quickly as possible. If you watch or read interviews with other writers, you'll hear them talk about this process. So getting into flow, writing in flow, is one of the highest value skills that you can learn. And writing in flow is a creative brain activity. And every time you edit, you switch between the creative brain and the analytical brain, and that interferes with flow. And if you've not got into flow, it stops you ever getting into flow. So writing in the edit as you go mode not only is a poor way of using your brain resources, but it has other implications as well and other problems. So if you can get out of that and get into writing in a way where the creative brain is being let loose on the page and the editing brain can come in at another time, then that will help with all sorts of things to do with your writing. So if you are editing as you go rather, your writing might be grammatically perfect, or you might have corrected all the typos you made or changed the odd word here and there. But by doing that, you strip it of the creative sparks that really fly when you're writing in flow. If you've never experienced writing in flow, find books on it, email me questions. It's probably the number 2 writing skill that you should be looking to work on just after developing your story sense. Now, here's an interesting side tangent or side detour. Back in the day, writers didn't learn like this. It was not such a problem. And the reason was because if you wrote on a manual or electric typewriter, going backwards was an absolute pain in the ass. So you didn't really go backwards. Occasionally what you would do is you would backspace a few times and then X out a word or a couple of words and then just carry on going. But essentially, writing on a typewriter encouraged you to write forwards. So if you learned, like I did on one of those machines, line by line editing as you create is not really a part of your process. The problem now is that we've got word processors, and when you write an email or a letter or similar, a document or a report, you can edit as you go. It's really simple to go, oh God, that word's shit. Let's get rid of it and put this word in, or that line's terrible. Let's delete it and write a different line instead. And it's really easy to get into that process of switching from the creative brain to the analytical brain, back to the creative brain, back to the analytical brain. And for relatively short, low-value activities like emails or letters or short memos or stuff like that, it's probably okay. But for writing fiction, it's the worst thing that you can do, in my opinion. There are a couple of writers who actually write like that I've seen in interviews, but very, very few. Most people write and then edit, and they have those two processes as distinct processes, which takes advantage of the fact that when you're writing, you can pass that task on to the creative side of your brain, and when you're editing, you can pass that task on to the analytical side of your brain. And you have to train yourself to write forwards, is a way of describing it, when you're writing fiction, because otherwise you're just going to hold yourself back. Writing forwards, writing with the creative part of the brain, writing in flow will make your writing much better, will make it flow more easily, will make words appear on the page more easily. And the other unspoken benefit of writing in flow is when you've finished, you get an enormous dopamine hit, and sometimes you write and you're just lost. You've Stephen King uses a metaphor. You've gone through the hole in the paper, and you write for an hour or 2 hours, and you finish your session, and you look around and go, my God, where did those 2 hours gone? So you lose track of time. If you've got any aches or pains, you'll find them go away when you're writing in flow. So many benefits of being able to write in flow. This isn't a video about writing in flow. It's about the first component that you need, which is being able to write consistently forwards without editing. So you're just using the creative part of the brain. So it's like the forerunner to something that you have to have in place before you can think about then looking and working on developing a process where you can write in flow at will. And you always have to remember editing is a separate job. So if you can write, put the work away, even if that just means closing a file and coming back to it the next day and printing it out and then editing, making discrete and separate times for writing and for editing, it will make your fiction writing much better. Now, how can you learn to do this to avoid editing as you go? Well, as I've said, it's a critical skill because writing forwards is a big component of writing in flow. It also, if you can write forwards, which means you're writing freely, which means you're writing from the creative part of your brain, it helps with free writing, which is another critical skill in the writer's toolbox to have. I'll talk about free writing in another video article at some stage. The book that you should read, if you haven't already read it, is The Accidental Genius by a guy called Mark Levy. That's probably the best book on free writing to get you started, but free writing is another skill. I combine it with a thing which some people think of as morning pages, Julia Cameron. So every morning I wake up, I have coffee, I let the dog out, don't answer any emails, straight to my daily notepad. It's actually a Scrivener folder for each year, and then I write somewhere between 500 and 1,000 words of free writing. Again, I'll go through this in more videos. But you can learn how to write forwards incrementally. So you can do it in 100 word, start with 100 words, then 200 words, 300 words, and so on. You can set up into simple exercises where you just write forwards, and if you go as fast as you can and try and get used to not correcting, if you make a spelling mistake, try not to correct it and just keep going forwards, and know that you can pick up the spelling mistake with spell check in the editing process. You don't need to do it while you're writing. I mentioned this, I learned how to write forwards tangentially from Dorothea Brand's book, Becoming a Writer. So that's another resource you could check, although it's not necessary to do it. She says that one thing professional writers have to do is get used to putting words on the page. So she suggested, and bear in mind her book was released in 1934, she suggested when you wake up, go straight to your typewriter or your computer and write a number of words while you're still in that state between sleeping and waking. It doesn't matter what they are, but if you do that every day and gradually push the number of words you do, then it will accustom your brain to producing words. So that's another good exercise. And as I mentioned at the start of the video, I've also set up a simple training app that you can use that's designed specifically so you can't write backwards. The only advanced setting that allows you to do anything backwards, you can check it, and it allows two presses on the backspace button, and that's it. And it's also set up so that you can select the number of words you want to do. So if you want to start with 100 words and just do it, you can do it. Really simple app. If you sign up for my email account, not my email account, my email list, I'll send you a link to where that can be found and you can start using it. And as I say, you can set it to whatever number of words you need it to be set to. And the goal should be, let's say you start off with 100, then tomorrow see if you can do 150. The day after, see if you can do 200. If you can get to a point where you can do somewhere between 500 and 1,000 words as quickly as possible and always be going forwards, and you might think, well, what do I write about? And you just write about anything. And if you get stuck, you just sit there and write, I'm not sure what to write about, I'm not sure what to write about, I'm not sure what to write about. And eventually your creative brain will go, well, I'm bored of this shit, let's write about this, and you'll suddenly get some words. And sometimes if you do this enough, you'll find some nuggets of gold will come out in these sessions. This is like so there's two things going on here. There's one is learning how to write forwards. The second one is free writing. And you shouldn't really start the process of deliberately free writing until you can write forwards at will, because free writing is just about writing whatever comes to your head. So the first thing to do is learn how to write forwards. If you find you tinker with words as they come out of your fingertips onto the page. So do that first. Then when you can do 500 words without any problem, then you can start thinking about free writing. So yeah, so sign up for my email list, drop me an email, and I'll send you the link where you can find this trainer. It's really easy to use. It's very simple. The point is, if you use it every day for 15, 20, 25 days, gradually up the word count, you'll find that in the process of doing that, in 20 to 30 days, you'll find that suddenly you can write forwards without doing extensive editing as you're going forwards. And then you can think about editing as a separate process. So, closing out, writing forwards is a critical skill. Keeps the creative side of your brain engaged. And if you want to write in flow, that has to happen. Every time you break the link to the creative side of the brain by editing and doing an analytical activity, it makes flow further away from happening. Crucial point to remember, writing and editing are separate tasks. Keep them as separate tasks. I used to live with a guy he was an actor, but he was also a writer too. really interesting guy, very intelligent. He was doing stuff with hacking and phone hacking and stuff in 1994 on dial-up modems that was mind-blowing to watch him do. But when he was writing, he would have different hats for different activities. And so if you have to put on a hat that's your writing hat and do no editing, and then use a separate hat for when you're editing, if that's what it needs to do, or a t-shirt, set up things that help you remember it and help you engage with the process that you're working on, and that says to your brain, when I'm wearing this hat, we're just writing, or when I'm wearing this hat, we're just editing. It might sound stupid. If that's what you need to do to help you get to this point where writing and editing are separate tasks, then do that. That different hats for different jobs is definitely something that works. I don't know the psychological basis why, but I've used it for various things in the past and it definitely works. So don't hesitate to do something like that to help that process along if you need to. If you've got any questions or comments on this, you can email me, paul@deliberate-practice.com. Don't forget to go and sign up to the email list, and when you have, drop me an email and I'll send you a reply with the link to the Writing Forwards trainer. And I'm putting a resource together, which you can see the URL there. There'll be a link in the description of this video. It's for aspiring and or frustrated fiction writers. If that sounds like you, go and check that out. If you've got questions on it, just drop me an email. It might be for you, it might not, but check it out. And as I say, you got questions, just email me. So thank you for your time watching this, and hopefully if you are an edit as you go writer, hopefully you will start taking on board the fact that editing needs to be a separate process, and especially for fiction, if you can just get used to writing forwards and just being creative and keeping the creative side of the brain engaged with your writing, you should find that your writing quality goes up. You should find that writing becomes, the actual process of getting words on the page becomes easier as well. And then if you take the mindset, it can be edited, and that mindset doesn't mean you can commit to writing. I don't agree with the concept of shitty first drafts. We'll talk about that in another video at some stage. But if you can take the approach of, when I'm writing, when I'm writing story, I'm just gonna write it forwards and I'll deal with editing later, you'll find, or you should find, a lift in the number of words you do, a lift in how easy it is to do, and find the process more enjoyable. So hopefully you'll try that out if this is a problem of yours and it will help you. Let me know if you do. Email address is there, and I will catch you next time.